Hi, everybody. Hi, Jayanthy.
Hi, Pavithra. Good evening, everyone. Uh, Thank you very much for joining us today. We are very excited to present this session and give you guys a lot of information. So without any further delay, let me go ahead and start. So to begin with, just to give you a brief background on how Galvanize can help students, is that we provide end-to-end personalized solutions for students and working professionals like you guys who aspire to achieve get a degree from abroad, who aspire to pursue a global degree, sorry. So to begin with, what we do is we help you with profile building. We have dedicated counselors and experienced people who will understand your profile and give you suggestions on how you can build your profile so that it becomes suitable for a top university abroad. We also help with test preparation, which is again an important aspect that is needed for the application to study abroad. So we help you with tests like GRE, TOEFL, IELTS, and also the SAT if you are planning to do your undergrad abroad. In addition to all this, we also have expert admissions counselors who will be a one give you personalized counseling, help you with understand your profile, help you analyze what you need to do, how you need to go about the application process, and so on. So we do this for bachelor's, master's, doctorate, and MBA degrees. We are a team that is founded and managed by alumni from Stanford, IIT Madras, and IIM Ahmedabad. This is our team. So just to give you a brief introduction about us, this is the team. This is the main management team of our company. We have helped students from more than 65 countries and more than 400 cities in India. And they have all enrolled with us, and we have supported them and guided them for their degree abroad journey. We have helped students get admits into thousands of universities across 18 plus countries. And I've listed just a few of the top universities that we have helped our students to get admits into. We'll talk a little more in detail about these students and their profiles during the session. Okay, to introduce myself, my name is Jayanthy Ramakrishnan. I head the servicing team here at Galvanize Global Education. I have a PhD degree from the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. And having worked in the US for a few years, we decided to come back to India, and now I'm working with students who aspire to go abroad. My co-host today is Ms. Pavithra Srinivasan. She has an MS in electrical engineering from Stanford with a 100% fellowship, which is amazing. She has a number of years of experience in working in the tech industry, and now she's the co-founder of our company, and she has been helping students like all of you for the last few years. Okay. To give you the session highlights, we will be talking about why you want to study in the USA, as to what are the main reasons that people want to study in the USA, what are the amazing opportunities that you'll have when you study in the US. We'll also talk about what are the top graduate programs that are available in the US, and we'll also talk about what are the most popular programs that the students went to in fall 2024 and so on. The main thing that we will cover in the session is what do universities look for in their students? What is the admission process like? How do you need to change your approach for applying to these universities? We will give you all of that information. We'll talk very in detail about each aspect of the application process, as well as we'll also highlight some case studies of people that we have helped and show you, give you a brief glimpse on their journey. Okay.
Yeah. So thanks a lot for the introduction, Jayanthy. Now, many of us are here because we want to know what to do to get into the top programs, right? Now, and today we're focused on the US. So before we get into the secrets or the, no, to be frank, the journey of the student, what can you do to get into a top university in the US? Let's talk about why study in the US in the first place. Right now, you have excellent universities in all countries, but the US is very unique in this regard because just name the number of world-class universities in the US, and you will count your Harvard, Stanford, MIT, Yale, Princeton, Caltech, Carnegie Mellon, Georgia Tech, Berkeley, UCLA, Columbia, NYU, Cornell, UPenn. The list goes on and on. You can easily name 2 dozen, 3 dozen extremely world-famous universities in the US. Now, a lot of other countries also have a lot, they have their share of world-class and world-famous universities, but they don't have it in the dozens like what the US does, right? That's what makes the US an extremely attractive destination for studying abroad. And these universities have a variety of programs in them. They have departments in engineering, in sciences, in the humanities, in business, in medicine, in law. And you will find that they have been structured in such a way that your education system is also going to be quite practical and hands-on. US is well known for its professors having deep industry ties, and it's actually, as a country also, the not just the reputation of the institutes, but the country itself is very diverse. It's one of the most ethnically and socially diverse nations in the world. The UN gave it an education index of 99.9. And the economy of the US, they all said and done, it is still the world's #1 largest economy today, and it has been for decades. Right? So more than 100,000 small, medium, large size technology companies alone, not just functioning, but thriving in the US. And we use their products today. Right? There is a reason why Elon Musk from South Africa goes to the US to start a variety of companies. Jensen Huang starts NVIDIA in the US. There are a lot of examples. So the opportunities in the US, in particular for STEM fields as well as business and other fields, it's tremendous. So this is something that, while you have excellence in all countries, the US is very unique for the sheer quantum of opportunities. Thanks. So what can you do once you graduate? Can you join the workforce in the US? Yes, you absolutely can. Now, as a student, you will be going on an F1 visa. Now, according to the regulations as they stand today, there is a program called OPT, or Optional Practical Training. It allows students to work in the US in your field of study, which means during your master's itself, you can pursue an internship. And that way you get the practical work experience, plus you get to work full-time, you get the exposure, you get to make money. And if you've done your graduation in the US in a STEM field, as you know, STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. If you've done it in a STEM field, then you will be able to get an additional, you totally get a three years, 36 months, in which you can work there without even requiring an H-1B visa. So, and if you choose your employers carefully, such that they have excellent experience their lawyers have a lot of experience in applying for work visas for H-1B, then you can apply and throw your hat into the lottery, and then you can continue from there, right? Now, if your graduation in the US is not in a STEM field, it's in a non-STEM field, then it is a 1-year route. Now, here I have to call out something. Don't assume that, oh, you've done a management program, then you will get only 1 year. That's not always the case. There are MBA programs in the US which are STEM certified, right? In other words, the US there is a branch of the government that colleges, universities apply to that for STEM certification. And if your management course is math heavy, you have finance, accounting, quantitative math, decision-making studies, optimization, and so on, then it becomes eligible for STEM certification. Often a master's in business analytics is also eligible for STEM certification. So then you can stay back for up to 3 years without even requiring an H-1B visa. So these are some of the benefits of studying in the US. And if at all you have taken an education loan, all you have to do is make sure you don't throw a party and buy a Ferrari during these 3 years. Live frugally and get a good job, and you will even be able to pay back your loan. Thanks. So let's take a look at the top graduate programs in the US. Now, here we've drawn on a map for you the top 25 ranked universities in the US. Now, here I want to clarify a couple of things. First, these are overall rankings. What that means is a university might be exceptional in, say, biology, right? But it might not figure in this ranking because maybe it doesn't have a strong engineering or a business program. So that doesn't mean that it's not top ranked and renowned for biology. Okay, just to give you one example, if you take, I don't know if you've heard of the Johns Hopkins University, it is the number one in the US for all things related to medicine, healthcare, biology. I would say almost number one in the world as well. Now, that doesn't find a place in this list. The reason I'm telling you this is any ranking you get is always an overall ranking. So while it's important to aim for high-ranked universities, don't fall for the trap that it must be a household word, right? For it, or it must be famous. Because the companies that hire from these universities, every industry knows in their field of occupation, which are the universities that provide the best graduates. Right? So go by while you have a lot of famous names here, not every university here is well known for every single field. Okay, so that is something you need to keep in mind. Having said that, you will notice that there is a preponderance of universities on the coastal side, on the East Coast and the West Coast. Now, if you were to take more specifics and go deeper into subject areas, then you will find more universities coming in different states as well. But this is just to give you an idea. And many of these schools are, not all, but many are located in heavily urban areas where there's a lot of employment and job opportunities as well. Now, having said that, if you have to go to a rural university and you have to choose between, let us say Cornell is located in upstate New York, countryside, very beautiful, especially in the fall, but a little far away. But if you have to compare that with a university which is in an urban area but much lower ranked, then it's better to go for Cornell, assuming all other factors are the same in terms of the program as well. The reason I'm saying this is because it's so highly ranked, companies will actually fly into Cornell to conduct their on-campus, on-site interviews. Right? So you do have plenty of opportunity. If you pick a top school, this brand stays with you for life. So let's try and see what we can do to get you into the top schools. I just want to add, as an aside, I noticed some of you had a lot of questions. I would request you to chat, to type your questions in the Q&A, and we will definitely have a Q&A session for you at the end of the session. And we'd love to dive into the questions that are relevant for the entire audience. Thank you. So take a look at the rankings. Now, these are, again, they vary from university to university. You can see that the fee and the ranking there, look, the top university, whether it's a public university or it's a private university, they tend to be, in terms of, they tend to be expensive, right? And at the same time, if you notice, there are some public universities, like look at Berkeley and look at UCLA, they have a lower tuition fee for the in-state students. So public universities are, typically private universities tend to be a little more, well ranked. At least that's what in the top ranking set, right? But having said that, if you're a resident of California, you get to have an in-state fee. But well, most of us are not. So, but this is to give you an idea of the tuition and the cost of attending. Yes. So popular programs, what is it that students want to do? And I'm going to address students in countries in Asia and Africa and so on, what courses do you want to study? So here are some of the programs that we find are pretty popular. You will notice that there are, say, core courses, say in engineering, chemical engineering, mechanical engineering, civil engineering. These are always popular, and I've not mentioned them specifically because they're kind of evergreen. Okay. Now, I've brought in some new courses because I want to shed awareness on what's happening. For example, MS in Business Analytics has become very popular over the last few years. MS in Public Health has become super popular after the COVID epidemic as well. Right? There's also a course called, now, for those of you who want to do management or business, or you want to move away from your core area of science or technology, you have options like MIM, which is a master's in management. It is a shorter course than an MBA, and an MBA often requires, not always, but usually requires at least 3 to 5 years of work experience. And if you don't have that, then you can apply for an MIM and you get the exposure of what might happen in that degree, right? You get a lot of exposure about what management is like in an organization. For those of you who want to straddle the tech as well as management, there is an MS in engineering management. You can also do MS in industrial engineering or operations research. And of course, if you want to stay in the finance world, there's MS in finance. Of late, there are a lot of people doing MS in psychology as well. So let's come back to, let's go to some of the top graduate programs that in the US. Here, I've shown you a bunch of schools, but I especially want you to look at the right side. These are some of the our students at Galvanize, whom Jayanthy and her team have guided, and to help these students get accepted to the topmost universities in the US. For example, Hridi Brata from IIT, she's doing her PhD at MIT in electrical and computer science. It's top for this. It's number one, in fact, in engineering. Pavan is doing his master's in Berkeley in mechanical engineering. Aishwarya, again, Johns Hopkins, a top among the best for medicine. She's doing her master's in biotechnology. So these are students who they came to us early enough that we could give them the right kind of guidance, and they were also very sincere. They implemented our guidance. They worked hard. They were clear about their goals, and they followed our instructions, and we were able to work with them effectively and improve their profile and present themselves in an impressive way to universities.
So I'm going to go ahead and tell you a little bit about what do these universities actually look for in their students during the admission process. Okay, so I have the factors here that we know influence the admission decision. Now, I'll give you a brief about each of these factors right now, and then we'll talk about them more in detail in the subsequent slides. So first thing is the academics. So academics, no matter what, always plays a very important role. For the master's students, we generally say that you have to have a 3.0 GPA. For the PhD, we go ahead and say that you need to have at least a 3.2 or above, so that you are, you have a good chance at getting a fully funded PhD. So academics is extremely important. Now, in addition to academics, you also need to have a few other factors, like if you have any work experience, that definitely adds to it. But in addition to that, if you have done any kind of internships, if you have done any kind of projects, all those kind of things are also need to be highlighted in your application as well. And that you can do by building a very strong CV or a resume. Okay, so I'll explain to you in detail what exactly you need to include in a resume, what you shouldn't include in a resume in the next few slides. But a CV or a resume is like a window, the admission officer can actually understand your profile by looking at your resume. Next are the standardized tests like the GRE, TOEFL or IELTS. Now, of late, the GRE, many universities have made the GRE optional, but all of these top universities are bringing the GRE back, or at least they are saying that it's optional, which means that if you have it and if you have a good score, you should definitely report it, because that gives you an edge over some other candidate who hasn't taken the exam. In certain cases, when your GPA is not up to the mark, but you have a good GRE score, that can also act as a profile booster in such cases. So you definitely should take the GRE if you're aiming for the top universities. The TOEFL and IELTS is required for all international students because you want to prove that you have the necessary English proficiency to understand the master's program, to understand the courses that will be taught there, as well as it opens up your opportunities for getting a teaching assistantship and so on. So it's definitely important that you also take your TOEFL and IELTS for the admission process. Now the essays. So the essays are extremely important because that is where the admission officer or the admission committee gets to know you. And there are various essays that are required by these top universities. It's not just the statement of purpose. Sometimes you also have to submit a research statement. Sometimes you have to submit a diversity statement, a personal statement, a scholarship essay. All of these essays are extremely important. And depending on the university, some of them may require all of them, some of them may require one or two of them. The interesting thing is you cannot repeat information that you have done in one essay in the other essays. So it's extremely important that you know what you need to write in each essay and then showcase it and highlight it like that in each of these essays. So we'll talk about these essays also in detail later. The letters of recommendation. This is very important because here somebody who knows you is going to vouch for you in the application. So each of these universities get hundreds of applications every year. In fact, thousands of applications every year. So they are always going to look for people who can, say that, okay, this is a good candidate. And when they prefer that somebody who doesn't know you personally is actually the person vouching for you, somebody who has worked with you in a professional role. So it could be your college professor, it could be your internship manager, if you're a working professional, it could be your manager and so on. So letters of recommendation play a very important role for the admission officer to get to know you from somebody else's point of view. Work experience. Now it's not necessary that you need to have work experience to apply for a master's program in the US or an MBA program, just like Pavithra mentioned. But if you have, it definitely adds to your profile. Co-curricular activities. Now these could be activities which again boost your profile. So if you have done some kind of an internship as part of your 4-year degree, or if you have done some kind of a project, even if it's within the college, but it's something that you did extra, which was not part of your academic requirement, it shows that you have the interest and the dedication to do something extra. Of late, we have also observed that many of these top universities, because they get so many applications, before they give a final admission offer, they give a conditional admit, and then they ask the students to do an admissions interview with one of the admission officers. This again is very important. It's not going to be a very long interview or anything, but it's just a quick thing for the admission officer to gauge how you are, the way you answer and things like that. So that again is a trend that has been happening in the last few years. So all of these things, like I said, we will talk a little more in detail in the next few slides. Okay. Sahil, do you have a poll? So yes. Please answer this poll. We are asking you where you are right now in your study abroad journey. We just want to know how much you have thought about it, how prepared you are. Okay. Yeah. So I see that most of you are still exploring study abroad. So that's great. This is a perfect session for you to attend. We will give you all the information, and I'm sure by the end of this session, you would have we would have at least moved you closer to the point where you have decided that you're going to study abroad. Some of you are registered and preparing for the exams. That is great. So I'll also talk about that. Some of you test is done, but you're waiting for the others. And many of you are preparing your essays, which again is a right stage to be in right now, considering that many of the deadlines in the US are in the months of November and December. Okay, so let's move ahead to the next slide. Okay, so since we just did the poll, I want to talk about the timeline if you are applying for a fall 2025 intake. Now, if you guys don't know, in the US, generally there are two intakes, the fall and spring. The fall intake starts in the month of August or September. So right now, the fall 2024 intake has just started about a few weeks ago. And it goes on from August, September until December. The spring intake starts from the month of January until May. And then during the months of May, June, July is generally the summer months when there is international students very rarely go for that intake. The fall and the spring are the popular intakes, but the fall is more popular for the following reasons that, that is the intake wherein most of the professors have more funding available. So your opportunities for assistantships increases in the fall intake. Moreover, many times when you go for a master's or a PhD courses, there are some core courses that you have to complete. And some of these courses are delivered as a 2-part or a 3-part system. And most of the times, the first part of the course, the first course is always delivered in the fall intake. So if you go in a spring intake, you have to wait an entire year to get to the first part of the course. So that's why we do have a lot of students who go for the spring intake, but the fall intake is one of the most popular intakes. The other reason is also a personal reason. Many students, going to a new country, they have to adapt. They don't want to go there in the severe winter months, especially if you are in any of the top universities on the East Coast. There are severe winters over there, and many students find it very difficult from their home country to go and adapt into a new country. So where then they have to learn a lot of new things, but as well as they have to cope up with the weather. So we have seen that the fall intake is much more popular among international students. Now, if you see the timeline that I have up here, you literally have to start the program 1.5 years before the intake that you actually want to go. So you have to spend almost a year. That is, if you're doing a 4-year degree, ideally you should be working on your building your profile right from the 2nd year of your degree. And you have to focus the 2nd, 3rd, and a part of the 4th year in profile building. In the 3rd year, you have to focus on taking the necessary tests like the GRE. The GRE is a test that you can take even in your 2nd or your 3rd year because it's valid for 5 years. Ideally, the TOEFL and IELTS is something that you should only take in the 4th year because it's only valid for 2 years. And we want to make sure that the intake that you go, your TOEFL and IELTS is slightly valid for at least 6 months after the target intake. So that way you don't fall into any kind of problems with respect to the test requirement. Now, so having said that, so if you're going for the fall 2025, right now you should be focusing, you should have your tests completed. If you don't have your tests completed, there's no need to panic. You can still have about a month to complete your tests. You should, but simultaneously start writing your SOPs, making arrangements to get your letters of recommendations, as well as you should in the next 1 month, you should be able to shortlist your universities and start the application process. Most of the universities in the US, especially the top universities, their deadlines start from the month of, I would say, mid-November and get they are done by December end for the top universities. There are some other universities which are still available, definitely available in the months of Jan, Feb, and March. Many of the universities also have 2 deadlines called as the priority deadline and the regular deadline. The priority deadlines are generally earlier in the months of November and December, and then the regular deadlines are in the months of January, February. The advantage of applying for the priority deadline is that It shows to the university that you are committed to complete your application on time and you have taken the effort to make sure you met the priority deadline. So then there is also a higher chance of you getting an assistantship if you apply before the priority deadline. Okay, so you should ideally target to finish your application process for the top universities in the months of November, December, and for your other universities by Jan, Feb. Of course, you have to keep the deadlines in mind. Some universities have a rolling deadline, which means that they continue to accept applications until they get the desired number of students. But again, there, the earlier you apply, the better. Okay. Now, once you have finished your application, you will start receiving admission decisions in the months of Jan, Feb, May, depending on when you applied, of course. And then once you have received your admission decision, you will have some time to make a decision as to which university you want to join. That would depend on how many admits you get. And then if you have multiple admits, you want to decide which is the best program for you. You want to decide where the university is based. Also, one of the factors that you would have to consider is if it gives you if the university is offering you any scholarship or any financial aid. If not, you have to then make arrangements for the money, and then you will decide where you want to go. Once you have decided which university you're going to attend, then you need to start making preparations for the visa. So the months of May, June, and July, generally May, June of 2025 will be spent in the visa preparation. And once you have your visa, you will, in the months of July, end of July, August, you will be ready to move to the US. You have to realize that the visa for the US, the F1 visa requires a face-to-face interview. So you need to make sure that you are, we'll always guide you when you enroll with us, but you have to make sure you find the slots and are ready for the visa interview as well. Okay. So that is one thing that you have to keep in mind with respect to the US, that the F1 visa requires an interview. Now, if you are aiming for fall 2026, then you still have time, but this is the right time for you to start the process, because all these top universities, as well as any other university, you need to make sure that the program you're applying for is something that you really want to study. Okay, you want to make sure that it aligns with your interests, it aligns with your short-term and long-term goals. So hence, it's important that you work on profile building starting from now. So when you enroll with us, we will guide you on what kind of activities you can take part, so that, it helps you with your profile, so that next year at this time, you have everything done and you are ready to start your application process. So if you're aiming for fall 2026, currently you should be working on profile building and taking the GRE. Once you're done with those two things, you can also start researching your universities. You are not ready to apply yet, but you can look at the various programs. You can see what is there anything that is missing in your profile that you can add to in this 1 year, and so on. And then early next year, you can do your TOEFL IELTS, and then start with your SOPs, LORs, and other essays in the summer months. So that way you are already ahead of the all the other people, and you have planned better. So this is a fall 2026 timeline that I have here. Okay. Now let's talk about the process of the application. So I already touched upon some of these things. So the step-by-step process, you have to have the test preparation. Once you have your test scores, you will be ready to do your university shortlisting. Once you have your university shortlisting, you are then ready for the application process. Now, while this seems like a linear process, what you need to understand is there is a parallel process that you need to follow, which involves your profile building, which has to happen along with your test preparation. Your essays have to start, you have to start working on your essays slightly before you have the university shortlisting, because while you can draft your main SOP, main statement of purpose before your shortlist, only when you do your shortlisting, you will have to customize each of those essays to fit the university that you're applying for. You should never, use a standard SOP for all your universities. It's very important that for every university that you're applying, you take out the time, look at the program, look at the professors in that department, see who you may be interested in working in, look at the labs that are associated with the university, and mention all of these things in the essays. That shows the admissions committee that you have done your research, you are really committed to joining their university, and you need to then, that really gives them a very good idea. So you should never do a copy paste job and just apply to every university using the same SOP. So please keep this in mind. If you're doing the entire process on your own, this is something that you should definitely keep in mind. And if you're enrolled with us, we will walk you through the steps. We will make sure that you're customizing each of your SOPs.
Yeah.
Pavithra,
I
you
just
want
want to add, thanks, Jayanthy. So this is something very important because that differentiates applicants who succeed at the top universities as compared to the average or below average or tier 2, tier 3 universities. It's perfectly okay. Now you could go to a consultancy who will say you just need one statement of purpose, one SOP you can apply to so many universities. And they are right, but that's for the bottom tier universities. Right? But if you want to succeed in the top universities, you have to have really customized SOPs for each university. Now, there are some of, this session is about what you can do to get to the top universities, and that is why we're giving you very specific advice. Right. So even now, if a student comes to us with a mediocre profile who is very happy, more than happy to get into a tier 3 university, we would not be giving that student this advice. See, that's because Galvanize is all about personalization. See, our inputs will be based on your profile, your needs, your goals, your short-term goals, your long-term goals, your budget, your interest. So when you come to us, what we give you is advice which is specifically for you based on a thorough understanding of your needs and goals. Right. So that's something I wanted to call out because what we are saying today is not the standard advice that we would give for every student and for every university. Thanks, Jen.
Okay. So I'll also, in the subsequent slides, I'll also be showing you a couple of examples of where we have customized the SOP, where we have talked about the motivation of the student as to why he chose a particular program and things like that. Okay. Letters of recommendations, again, very important part of the application. You need to make sure that when you're in your university or if you're working, you'd have a good rapport with your managers, with your professors, especially with the professors who are in the core field that you want to study abroad, so that they can vouch for you, write a good recommendation for you. So this is something that is a process that you have to start from the second or third year if you are planning to go abroad. Identify which professors you want to do extra work with, whom you want to work in the labs and things like that, so that they can give you a very good recommendation. Okay, so that is the process of the application. Next, we'll talk a little bit about profile building, and Pavithra will share some important tips there.
Right. So, one interesting thing that Jayanthy pointed out in the timeline, you might have noticed that the timeline for a semester for, let's say, our admin semester is fall 26. We recommended a timeline starting almost 2 years, in fact, more than 2 years before the deadline. Right. Again, this is not something that we would advise for a student who wants to join a regular everyday university. But if you want to get into a top university, then you should have started building your profile much earlier than that. So the advice of, just come into your fourth year and in your seventh semester, let's start the process, won't work for a top university. Right. And that is why as soon as you get into college, you really want to start building your profile. Now, many of you, if some of you are, let's say, in engineering students, the first year will be a lot of commonalities. You may not be able to be very clear what's the specific field of interest. But by the time you're in your second year and third year of your college, whichever degree, whatever field you do, you will start noticing that certain topics interest you more than other topics. And it's in these topics that you have to focus in order to build your profile. Similarly, if a few, 2, 3 years into your program, if you feel that this is not something that you like, then you have to start building your profile in other areas, right? Why do you have to build your profile in the first place, you might ask? Well, it's pretty straightforward, because the fact is, a university gets thousands and thousands of applicants. How will you stand out? Right? Why should so? Because they have an acceptance rate, and some cases it is 10%, 20%, which at the top universities often have very low acceptance rates, and which means a lot of your applications, not yours, like yours, but many students' applications end up in the reject pile, right? So if you have an excellent profile, then you increase your chances of getting admission from a top university. So what should your profile be like to be, the university must feel that, hey, this person is unique. They're very passionate about their topics, and they're extremely good at that. They have proven themselves in these areas, and therefore we should give them an opportunity in our school for this particular field of interest. The resume has a lot of projects in it. And if you have a good profile, not only does it improve your admission prospects, but it also boosts your confidence if the university should choose to interview you, right? So all of this matters, and that helps you stand out from the crowd, and that's why the profile building is super important. Now, moving on, if you were to look at what all activities you can do in order to enhance your profile, right? How can you build your profile? This is a very common question. Again, our input for a bachelor's aspirant will be very different. If you're a school student wanting to do your bachelor's abroad, we would not give you this advice. But if you are a college student or a working professional wanting to do your master's, MBA, or PhD abroad, then if in the top universities, they look for a lot of things, right? You can get into a tier 3 university with no internships. I can get you that admission, right? But if you want to get into a top university, they would look for to see whether you have done something meaningful and substantial in your area of interest. So that would mean projects, internships. It could be at a large MNC, or it could be in a small and cool startup, but it has to be in your area of interest, the field in which you're applying for your higher education. Similarly, if you have worked under professors, many professors conduct research projects in their summer, and if you can go work for them. A tip is, please don't insist on stipend, right? If you actually willingly, or if the professor is doing very important or is work or is recognized in his or her field, and if you get a chance under them and they write you a great recommendation letter, it is extremely very powerful. Therefore, don't ask for a stipend to work under such a professor. Another tip is to take up certification courses on Coursera or Udacity. And there are many such places where you can, don't do random courses. Pick courses which show that you are interested in the topics that you need, especially those of you who are planning to switch your department. A good way to learn and bridge the gaps in your target department is to do courses in these areas. And you can even do a track. A track is a sequence of courses organized in a particular way that will give you a larger foundation in that area. For example, let us say you do a data science track. You would learn different skills in that, right? Now, what else can you do? You can do research projects. You can do it in your university. You can do it with a company, with a professor. You can do it with a research lab. You can find friends together. You can read and study papers and publications and summarize them. Look at the literature and learn from that. You can also, some of these paper presentations, conferences, hackathons, workshops, they are prestigious. Some of them are international. And if you were to travel and go to a university in another country, you might find more interesting people to collaborate with, to talk, to get more ideas. So try and make sure that you don't just go to college, come back, go to college, come back, keep watching Netflix or spending time on social media. You will have to take a lot of your time out to build your profile, because you want a top university. right? So you have to do your part in order to make yourself an attractive candidate, right? And again, what courses to take, what internships to do, these will vary from student to student. And once you enroll with us, we will be able to give you appropriate guidance based on your profile. So let's dive into the test preparation. I'm sure you know about the tests. So let's see where you stand on your tests. A little poll to see your current plans. So when are you taking the GRE? Are you taking the GRE? How are you preparing for it? Okay. So, there's a mix of different, a lot of spread. I think different people are in different backgrounds, and that's fine, because what is interesting is you all recognize that many top universities do require the GRE, right? And this is something that I want to elaborate a little bit. Now, most people think that this is a binary. They think it's black and white, black or white. Like either the university requires the GRE or doesn't. So I actually want to point out there's quite a bit of gray area here. There are universities that would say on their website that they require it. There are universities that would say the GRE is optional, in which case it's better you take it and submit it if you have a good score. Only if a university says we will not look at the GRE, then it means they really do not consider it. So therefore, the GRE becomes an extremely important part of your application. Now, having said that, when is the ideal time to take your GRE? So if you notice the syllabus of the GRE, which is your verbal reasoning, quantitative reasoning, analytical writing, they do not depend on your college program at all, right? So you don't have to wait till your fourth year to take it. And if you're a working professional, you should plan to take it, along with your everyday work, because you may not be able to take a lot of time off to prepare, right? So that is another tip I want to give our college students here. You can take your GRE even in your first year, even in your second year. Don't have to wait till your third year or fourth year, because the GRE is valid for 5 years. So if you take your GRE early and you get a good score, and the syllabus for the GRE, the portions come from your high school, right? I would say from your grade, 10, 11 of school for the math. And then for the English, it might be a little challenging, but for many of you, your college is not going to help you improve your English for the GRE anyway. So you better take your GRE early. Then that frees you up in your third year and fourth year to build your profile, to take up projects and internships and do research, right? So you want to spend that valuables, those summers, those winters doing your projects and research and internships, and not prepping for the GRE. But hey, if you're already in your fourth year, don't worry. You can take your GRE quickly, and you can take our crash course, and that's going to help you. But be prepared to put in a lot more time, right? So it's something like, losing weight before a wedding. Like if you start a year earlier versus if you start 2 months before, imagine the amount of effort that you need to put in, right? So that's pretty much how preparing for the GRE works. So because the exam score is valid for 5 years, don't delay taking the test. You can take it up as soon as you can and free up your summers to do some fantastic internships that will make you look a very attractive candidate. So what does the GRE pattern look like? Now, if you've noticed, if the exam begins with an analytical writing assessment, you have to type an essay for half an hour. You're actually lucky because a couple of years ago, they actually changed the exam pattern. The GRE exam used to be for almost 4 hours. Okay, now it's just pretty much close to 2 hours. And after your half-hour essay, you have a verbal section followed by a math section, and together your GRE score, it's anywhere between 260 to 340 points. Now, you might ask, do I get 260 points just for showing up at the exam hall? Yes, you do. And that's because, for some reason, the US doesn't like to give zero to anybody. But of course, all universities know this. So they will look at the percentiles, and they don't just limit themselves to looking at the scores. They will look at your percentile. And if you, maybe we could go to the next slide. If you're planning to apply for the engineering, you should have a top GRE score. So here we've shared some of our students who have got excellent GRE scores out of 340. These are and these are students who have taken our GRE preparation program. It's a self-paced GRE prep where they can come on their own time. They can they have a personalized study plan generated for them, and you will be able to view videos, answer questions, ask your queries. So everything happens according to the plan. So these are some of our top GRE scorers. And now let's look at the TOEFL. So the TOEFL, if you see, has, just like the IELTS and the TOEFL, these are exams where the university needs to confirm that you have good English communication skills, because you will have professors, classmates, roommates, colleagues from different parts of the world. And therefore, they want to make sure you can all communicate with each other. So these exams test your reading, writing, listening, and speaking skills. Now, the TOEFL, the speaking is done by but you will be speaking into a microphone, and that will be recorded, and then your speech will be analyzed and you'll be given a score. And if you look at it, all of these together, each section has 30 points, and the total TOEFL score is out of 120 points. Now the TOEFL and the IELTS are valid for 2 years, so it's like Jayanthy said, you can take it in your final year just before you apply to the universities. Here are some of our top TOEFL scorers. One very important advantage, again, here's a secret tip of getting an excellent TOEFL score or an IELTS score. In addition to being super proficient in one of the subjects, is that you can apply for a teaching assistantship position in a university. Because for a teaching assistant, if you have to help a professor teach a course, it's not enough if teach an undergraduate course typically, or a lab. It's not sufficient for you to just be an expert on that subject, because you would have to explain. You will have office hours with students from different countries, and therefore they look to see that the students' English is exceptional, and therefore they know that you will be able to communicate with other students, help them with their homework, answer their queries, and that is something that a high TOEFL and IELTS score helps you. So when you take our course for the TOEFL or IELTS, you don't have to give as much time as you gave for the GRE. You will be able to complete your TOEFL or IELTS preparation within 30 days, especially maybe every weekend, let's say 3 or 4 weekends you focus. That's all you need. But don't take these exams lightly. If you get an excellent score, it can open up opportunities for an assistantship. So the IELTS is very similar to the TOEFL. It also has reading, writing, listening, and speaking, but it's graded out of 9 points. So your score on all these exams is averaged out, and you get out of 9. So with a decimal of every 0.5, so you might get a score of 7.5 or 8.0 and so on. Now, the speaking section on the IELTS is a little different from that on the TOEFL, because in the IELTS, you will actually be having a face-to-face conversation with a certified IELTS examiner. And therefore, imagine you're going to go and sit and have a chat with someone. You'll be meeting them, looking them eye to eye. They'll be asking you a few questions about yourself, your opinions on different topics, and so on, your description of your everyday activities, whatever. And that person will use their judgment to evaluate you on how you spoke with them, and that will be your speaking score. So expect to go to the exam center a couple of times maybe, or spend a little longer, because you will have to meet with a person. And my suggestion is it's to go well presented and be very confident. So when you enroll for our IELTS or TOEFL courses, we ensure that your mock tests, for example, there will be a mock test where whatever you speak, your speaking assignment is graded by our faculty, and they will actually give you very specific feedback on how you can improve your speaking. Maybe it's the points you talked about, the order in which you conveyed. Maybe you speak too fast. Maybe your pronunciation, a few tips here and there can be helpful. Perhaps the pauses that you give, right? So it'll be different for each person, right? And therefore, it's helpful to get the feedback from someone else. We're all used to talking in our own head. Now, we don't know how we sound to another person. So the feedback that you get from an examiner, and if you incorporate that feedback, then definitely the practice scores that you get on our exam, as you see the improvement from one mock test to another mock test, and the scores that you get on your actual exam are very close to the score, very high. Our exams are highly predictive of the score that you will get on your actual exam. Right, so do prepare for it. And here are some of our top IELTS scorers. They all scored 8.5 out of 9. Congratulations again. So, one common question is, should I take the IELTS or the TOEFL? Again, it's not one straight answer for everybody. Now, if you were to enroll for our admissions counseling, our counselor will be able to look at your profile and your needs and goals and advise you as to which exam is right for you. I know both these exams are very popular all over the world, and it's a myth that for example, Australia only accepts IELTS. That's not true. You can take the TOEFL for any university in Australia. Similarly, most universities in the US accept the IELTS nowadays. However, there are a few universities which are accepted. For example, Stanford accepts only the TOEFL and not the IELTS, the computer science department. Now, why is that? Do not know. Maybe they update it next year, but you have to make sure that you take the right exam for your goals, because you don't want to be in a situation where you took an exam, but then your target department does not accept that exam. Right, so it's very important, and then therefore then you will miss the opportunity, or you will have to prepare last minute and take this other exam and find a slot, and it just adds to the stress. Right, applying to universities itself can be a little stressful, especially if you want to go for a top university and you know how competitive it is. So when you work with a counselor, the way we guide you and we plan your timeline, if you can just follow our instructions, you will be going through the journey with much more peace, and therefore you will have a lot of energy and motivation to do all the things that you need to do in a timely manner. So a couple of things when you want to consider the factors in shortlisting universities. So maybe if you can just a little more on the animation. I think it needed to start from the left to the right. I think it's just started right in the center. Yeah, thank you so much. That's enough for now. Yeah. So the first and most important point is when you choose a university to apply to. Most people think it's the reputation of the university, but actually it's the field of interest. The university has to be really solid in your field of interest. I gave you the example of Johns Hopkins University. I'll give you the example of Harvard. Have you ever heard of anybody doing their engineering at Harvard, as a top university? Not really. It's not known for, engineering. Or for example, the University of California in San Francisco, UCSF, they are top-notch for medicine, right? They're not top-notch for engineering. Take the Syracuse University. It has a fantastic public policy program. Or George Washington University is wonderful for political science. So the industry, the segment in which you work, they know which universities are renowned for their field. So the field of interest, the reputation of university in the field of interest is more important than the overall reputation of the university. But having said that, once you've after the field of interest, then you look at the university reputation and look at the career opportunities that look how well connected the university is. Are there companies that come there for hiring? Do they have a great career development center where they can guide you? They coordinate a lot of interviews. So look at all these factors. Of course, when I say field of interest, a university is good, it means it has professors there doing seminal work in your field, right? So this is very important because they're the ones who are going to teach you, especially if you're doing a PhD. You want to make sure that these are people who are doing high-end research, and this is something that you want to pay attention to. So once we can continue. So after all these aspects, then you look at the cost. Because when you look for a top university, you've come for a top 20, top 30 university, and you're not going to, you can always take an education loan if you're confident in your ability to pay it back. Top universities can be expensive, right? because they are they're very high in demand. So yes, there will be a cost involved, but it's not your first priority. Now, if let's say, even if you're in a family situation where you're not able to take your family's not able to support you. If you get into a top program at a top university, we can, at Galvanize, we can recommend education loan providers who will actually give loans free of collateral, without any cosigner, without any dependency, but provided you've gotten into a top program. Right. So we will have all these different opportunities. Now, if we're able to factor into account all of this, then finally look at your personal choices, such as the location, the climate, geography, weather, these are all other aspects, right? So these are the factors that you will consider when you choose shortlist universities that you will apply to.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about the documents or the essays that are required along with the application process. Okay, to start with, let's talk about the resume. Now, the resume, like I said earlier, it's a brief, it has to be a brief document which highlights your professional experience, your educational background, your extracurricular activities, any achievements or awards that you have received. What you have to remember is that the admission committees review hundreds of resumes and admission documents every day. So it's extremely important that your resume is concise. It doesn't talk about something very much in detail, but it gives the highlights of your profile very well. Where you want to highlight things about that are mentioned in your resume are the SOPs and the essays. So the resume is basically going to just list your achievements. It's going to list your educational experience, your professional experience, all of those things. It's just going to give the highlights and the headlines. All of this has to be explained much more in detail in the other essays that will accompany your application package. Now, the length of the resume does not determine your chances of getting in an admission, because very often we see that when students come to enroll with us, they bring like 3 or 4 pages of their resume, and they think that this has to be submitted as is, only then they stand a chance for an admission. But that's not the case. Like I said, because there are so many documents that are reviewed by the admissions committee on a regular basis, you need to keep your resume short, and it has to be in such a way that the main points of your profile are highlighted, and that will also then give the admission officer the motivation to look at the other essays that are coming in that are going to be part of your package. Okay, so please remember that the resume is better to be kept within 1 or 2 pages. Now, what the do's and don'ts are, you always have to provide truthful content. Please don't write things that you have not done, because if you end up getting a conditional admit, and say, for example, you are called in for an admissions interview, and if they question you about that, you will not know about it. So it's always better to write only about the things that you have actually done, the activities that you have actually participated. So do not write about things that you have not done. Never copy paste from somewhere else, because all the universities do plagiarism checks. So you want to make sure that whatever is on your resume is something that is truthful and it applies only to you. Okay. For a master's or a PhD application, you don't need to mention anything that you did in 10th and 12th grade. Even if you were, the top ranker or top ranking person in your school or college, unfortunately, there is no point in mentioning that in your master's or your PhD application. So leave out that information. Make sure that you utilize the space in the resume for relevant information. The other thing that we often see is when students come to us, they, use a lot of, they try to make the resume very interesting by using different colors and different fonts and graphics. You adding your photograph and things like that. All of those things are not needed. You need to present an academic resume. So you have a very simple format which just lists your professional experience, your educational experience. It talks about any publications that you have had and so on. You need to have a motivation as to what your objective is for studying abroad and a particular degree, but you don't need to mention any of the fancy things. One thing that I have noticed in a lot of the resumes that students bring to us, they write about, they put their passport number, they put their date of birth, they put their marital status. All of this is not needed. All these countries, all the universities abroad are supposed to give you the admission without looking at your race, your gender, your religious affiliation, nothing. So please don't mention all of these things. These are things that are not at all needed by these universities. You don't need to mention your passport number, because obviously if you have to go and study abroad, you need to have a passport and you need to have a visa. So that is something that is taken care of later. So there is, you having a passport at the time of the application is not going to make the sway the admission committee in giving you an admission. So remove all this unwanted information from your resume. It should only talk about your profile, your achievements, and the things that are going to help the admission committee in making a decision as to whether you are a suitable candidate or not. Okay, so please remember this about the resume. When you enroll with us, we will give you a format in which you will fill in all the details, and then we will help you in editing it better and making it ready to look as an academic resume, which can be directly used to apply to the universities. Okay, statement of purpose. This is an extremely important document. Everything that you mentioned in your resume, this is the essay where you are going to elaborate on it. This is the essay where the admission officer is going to get to know you. He's going to read this resume and understand you as a person, understand you as a motivation, understand your motivation in studying abroad, as to why you decided to study abroad, what is your thought process. And once you get a degree from their university, what are you going to do with that degree? So these are the kind of things that you need to highlight in your SOP. You need to talk about your strengths and your weaknesses. You need to know your audience. That is all your SOP is going to be read by the admissions committee, and certain cases it's also going to be read by the professors who are going to give you funding, or who is going to offer you a position in their lab. So in such a case, you need to appeal to that audience as well. So that is something that you have to keep in mind and market yourself accordingly. Okay, so what is the SOP structure? Normally, we start with the introductory paragraph, and this is something we call as the attention getter. So here you need to add, we encourage students to add some quote or personal anecdote, or which, kind of paves the way to the entire document. It kind of acts as your motivation as to why you decided to apply for this program. So that is how it starts. Then you have the body of the essay where you're talking about your undergraduate journey. Now, while you need to talk about your professional experience, as in you need to talk about your courses, your projects that you have done, you can also add some personal insights over here as to why you did this, or what motivated you to do this, or how it was useful for you to do this, and so on. If you have also faced some failures during the process, that can also be mentioned here. And then, what you did to overcome that failure can also be a nice addition to this part of the essay. In the concluding paragraphs, you need to talk about why a particular university and why that program. So this is something that I told you, you have to customize for every university that you apply. So you need to make sure that you do the adequate research for that particular program. So just like Pavithra talked about your field of interest, once you have that narrowed down, and once you have narrowed down your university that you're going to apply to, at that is the time you will then start saying, okay, why this university? How is this university going to benefit me? And you have to talk about that. Now, in addition to that, you also have to talk about how you will benefit the university, especially if you're a PhD candidate. You have to be able to come up with some kind of a research program which will benefit the university, which will benefit the lab, the professor that you're going to be working with. So that is the part that you will include in the concluding paragraphs of your SOP. Now, we often tell our students when they start the SOP process to do a SWOT analysis. What does a SWOT analysis mean? It talks about your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. So this, I already touched upon the strengths a little bit as to why you are ready for the program, what is the unique skill that you have, that you are bringing to the program, and how are your strengths going to be useful for the program. You can talk about what your strengths are from your perspective as well as from somebody else's perspective. Now, the weakness, very often students think that you should not talk about your weakness at all in such a document. That is not the case. You can talk about your weakness in such a way that, you know, how it made it difficult for you to achieve some goal, but how you overcame that weakness, what was the challenge that you had to overcome to overcome that, and how you achieved your goal. So this can be talked about in the weaknesses section. Opportunities, this is something that shows that you took you took the chance to avail the opportunities that were available to you. You were keeping in, you were aware of what are the trends in the industry, how you kept yourself abreast to everything. So this is something that you will talk about in the opportunity section. Threats, again, is some of the how your position was challenged by some other challenges in the technology and things like that, and how these constraints, how with all of the constraints that were there, how you were able to achieve your goal. So this is an analysis that we ask our students to do. Now, what you guys have to realize is that an SOP is not something that you can sit down for an hour or two and just write out. It is a thought process. There is a lot of thought process that you need to do. You need to sit down and think about it. You need to come up with various parts of it. So it will go through a number of iterations. So hence we ask the students to start early. It's not something that gets done right away. It will go through a number of brainstorming sessions, a number of thought. You may change something today, you may write something tomorrow, you may have a different idea. So hence it's always important that you take out enough time and spend enough time in drafting your SOP. Okay. So just like I talked about, you always want to start early. So writing, it calls for self-introspection and it takes time. So you need to start writing it early. You need to clearly state what field and specialization you want to do. You can't have an SOP which gives a very general information. You need to be clear and specific about what you're intending to study. And it is enough if you use formal English language. You don't have to make it very flowery and, look very this, unless you're applying for a program like that. But otherwise, you can just stick to the facts, but write it in a nice way. Always adhere to word limits. You don't be under the impression that if an SOP calls only for 500 words, it's okay if I write 550 words. No, you want to make sure that you stick to the word limit. At the same time, you don't want to submit an essay which is only 300 words. You need to be around 500, but less than 500, not go above 500. So this is something that is very important, and you can't have that attitude, oh, it's okay, it doesn't matter. No. When the universities give you any kind of instructions to follow, it is always better that you stick to those instructions. Again, just like the resume, please don't copy paste from somewhere on the internet. You can look for ideas on the net and, try to adapt them, but please don't copy paste, because again, these days with the, people using ChatGPT and a lot of this AI tools, we see that a lot of students, just copy paste and give the SOP. That is not at all acceptable. This is your story. So you don't want to make, pick it up from the net and just copy paste it. Just like the resume, I said, you don't want to give out any personal information. So avoid any controversial statements related to politics or religion in your SOP as well. Okay, let me show you a sample SOP for one of our students. So Samarth came to us from he had a MBBS degree, but he wanted to switch fields and go into get a Master of Public Health. And if you see that he has a good profile, very good GPA, good TOEFL score, average GRE score, and he ended up going to Johns Hopkins, which is one of the top ranked universities for anything bio related, just like Pavithra said. Now, in his SOP, what he talked about is the reason why he wanted to go into public health. So being a doctor, having a medicine degree, he found a very nice reason which motivated him to take up a public health degree. So if you see that he talked about how basic healthcare was not available to many of the people just because they were poor. And that motivated him to go into a field where he could make, change policies, come up with new policies that would help him make healthcare available to everyone. So this is a very nice example of how we saw something, something that was not working out well, and decided to make use of it, and showed that that was the motivation for him to go into a public health degree. So some kind of motivational story, something that made you decide that this is what you need to do, will really help you in making your SOP stand out and not seem very cookie cutter. Okay, so please keep that in mind. So that's why I said it is a process that takes time. You have to think about it. You have to see, okay, what is the motivation? Why did I decide to, go into this kind of a field? So any of these kind of personal experiences will really, be a nice thing to add into your SOP. Pavitra, I think you want to add something?
Yeah, just a couple of quick points here. So this kind of observation, you can see the personal side of the student coming out. Right now, if you look at a resume just says what you did, where you did it, and when you did it. It never says why you did it. What made you choose that project? What did you learn from that experience? What challenges did you face? How did you overcome? So the SOP complements your resume and also helps the university understand the human side of, right? So if you look at this particular example, now not everybody, this would be very unique to this person or this student. Now you may not know that this is what you need to write. So when you come and when you join our admissions counseling, we would ask you to fill up an SOP input form where you don't have to write an essay for us. You don't have to give your essay. We will help you write the essay, but we would need your life stories. We have listed out specific questions. And if you just give the answers to those series of questions that we have asked, our editors will take your responses and use that to weave together a first draft of your SOP. And then you can review that and iterate that on Google Docs. And then after a few iterations, you will be able to arrive at a satisfactory, what we call a main SOP. Right? Now, from that, we'll have to customize for each university that you're applying to. But the main SOP process you can start even before you have shortlisted which universities you're going to apply to. As long as you have clarity on which program you want to, which field of specialization, in which country, which degree, we can begin your main SOP process because it takes time. This sort of, you might have, some of our students give us 20 pages of material. And then from there, our editors have to sift and sort through which of this is more suitable, which will be more impactful. We have to come up with a sequence, with a narrative. Let's write this first, then we'll talk about this, then we will explain this. So it takes time. This is again, if you want to go to a top university, don't expect to do this in the last minute. Start early, get the right guidance, then your output will be really impressive. Thanks, Jen.
Okay. So letters of recommendation, I think I've mentioned this a few times. Your recommender can be a faculty or an employer or an internship manager, basically anybody who can vouch for you professionally. Okay. So make sure that you have built a good rapport with these people so that they give you a good recommendation. What they need to mention in the recommendation, they need to mention the details of the project that you worked with them. If there was a professor, then he or she needs to talk about how you did in the class, how you showed extra, how you were extra dedicated in the class. Is there something that you brought to the class? Did you perform well in a specific project? All of those things can be mentioned in the letter of recommendation. So based on who the recommender is, the recommendation letter content has to change. So here again, what we do with our students is, many times the recommenders tell the students that you write the recommendation and then run it by me. I will check it and then I'll submit it, because they may or may not have the time to write down a recommendation. So in such cases, again, just like the SOP, we ask the students to fill something, give us the information, wherein we ask a series of questions. Who is this recommender? How does this recommender know you? Based on certain things, how would this recommender grade you, and things like that. If you have done a project with the recommender, then the details of the project, what was the result of the project, and those kind of things. Once you give us this information, the editor will work with you to write a nice draft on how putting everything together, and then which you can then take to your recommender and get it approved, and then he or she can submit it directly to the university. Okay. So it again follows an introduction, body, and a conclusion format. We are basically, the recommendation letter basically should have your qualities and the strong suits that the recommender has recognized when they have interacted with you. Again, obviously it is a formal document, so you cannot use a lot of adjectives and things which will make it look a little not genuine. So I've given a couple of sentences here which we don't recommend that students use such language in the recommendation letter. So this is something that our editors will work with you. They will explain to you why you can't write this and why you should write it like this. So these are the kind of feedback that we will be giving with you when we work with you in drafting, helping you draft the letters of recommendation. Okay. Again, generally it's advised that the LOR does not exceed 1 page. It's about, on an average, a length of 500 words or so. Okay. Okay. So Pavithra will talk a little bit more about the scholarships and funding options that are available.
Thank you, Jayanthy. So, to be brief, if you have personal funding from family or yourself, that's great. But many students also require assistantship in the form of scholarships or education loans. These are quite common. And moving on to the next slide, you'll see that a scholarship, not just from a university, looks like a fellowship, right? So you have a fellowship, you have a teaching assistantship, and you have a research assistantship as well. So these will, there are different types of funding, and some students actually take a combination of the different types of funding. So it's not necessary that everybody will be able to just work with one particular type of funding. Now, if Jayanthy, if you could move to the next slide, please. Let me explain to you the differences between these types of scholarship. So a fellowship is a merit-based scholarship that is awarded to students, whom the university feels has excellent potential, and they really want the student to attend the university. A fellow is not expected to do paid work for the university, but they get their full tuition fee waived and their living expenses. In return for the student then therefore is allowed to focus purely on their courses and their research, right? Now, many universities offer fellowships, but there are also other fellowships, for example, the Fulbright Foreign Student Program, AAUW International Fellowship. There are even the Tata Foundation, for example, offers, I think, fellowships to 8 Indian students every year who attend Cornell for bachelor's degree programs. So these are not very commonly known information, apart from a university who all offer. And again, we can help you, determine whether your profile is suitable for a fellowship, and whether, if it is suitable, then we can also guide you on how to apply, right? So that's a fellowship. So just as if you can continue. So
Pavitra, I want to add that we
yeah.
are going to be doing a fellowship session in the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
So we'll also talk more in detail about these external fellowships that the students can apply for.
That's wonderful. That's a great opportunity for all of you to know what are the different fellowships available out there. Do let your friends and colleagues, and so we can all benefit from the session. Here you have the fellowship letter that I received when I applied to Stanford. So you could see that all my expenses were taken care of, and I was fortunately didn't have to work for the university. Of course, that gave me a lot more time where I tried out different things, took more courses. We can move on to the next slide where we talk about the research assistantship. So here you work very closely with the professor or the professor's postdoctoral students or PhD students and research students, and you help them advance their research projects, right? So here again, the university can pay you in order to, because you're doing this work for them. Again, typically the professor has to be convinced that you will be a valuable contributor to their team. Only then they're going to take you here. Another tip that I want to share with you though is most students think that I can apply for an RA only to a professor in my department. Now that is not really true. You can apply to another department if you have skills that that department needs, right? If you, for example, if you are studying data science, the Department of English or Psychology needs these skills, then they can actually sign you on the project for which they have a budget. Okay. Now, I'd like to give you an example of one of our students who got a research assistantship of 26,000 US dollars per year. This is Asmita. She's doing her PhD in chemistry at very renowned Purdue University. So you can see what her profile was like, what projects she did before applying. That's listed here in her academics and her scores. So just to give you an idea of the kind of strong research competence you need to demonstrate that convinces a university to offer you a research assistantship. So next we'll move on to a teaching assistantship, and here you assist a professor with teaching a course. It could be a theory course or a lab course, typically for undergraduate students. Now both RAs and TAs, the workload is at least 20 hours a week or up to 20 hours, and usually your tuition is waived, and sometimes your living expenses will also be waived. So like I mentioned earlier, for a research assistantship, you should not only be an expert in the subject you're going to teach the undergrad, you're going to help them with the undergrad students, but your communication skills have to be exemplary. So make sure you get excellent preparation for your TOEFL and IELTS. This is one of our students, Anushi, who's doing a PhD in public health. She won a teaching assistantship of 2,250 US dollars a month. She's at Texas A&M, and you can see the kind of projects that she has done, her profile, her academics, what she did before she, went to Texas A&M. So just to keep in mind, you have high chances of getting an assistantship if your profile is on the whole excellent. So these are all some of the things you have listed. Again, you want to top university, the applicants, a lot of applicants they're going to receive who have very strong profiles. So you have to really stand out. Not only should your profile be good, but your statement of purpose, your letters of recommendation, how you convey, your test scores. The higher everything is, the better chances you have of scholarship. It doesn't mean that everything has to be perfect. Okay, nobody's perfect. We have had students with lower scores, but an excellent research project profile who got accepted to top universities. We've had all different kinds of students. It's about showcasing your strengths, capitalize on your strengths, and project that to the university. So let's wrap up with education loans, and then I'll show you some, very interesting case studies. So education loans, well, if you don't have a scholarship that covers your needs, and you still, of course, want to attain that top university, then yes, there are education loans. And nowadays, because there is so much of data available in terms of how much students who have graduated from a certain program, from a certain university, what do they earn? So this allows loan companies to give personalized interest rates. And if you've graduated if you're getting accepted to a top program with a, let's say, in a school, very renowned school, a particular department, a particular program, we actually have our partnered loan companies who will help get you accepted to that, who will fund your degree even without collateral. So if you don't have property to mortgage, if you don't have, family funds, or if someone from your family is not in a position to sign a surety or a guarantee or loan payment, we still have companies who will take the extra risk, right? Their interest rates will therefore be slightly higher, but it actually frees you from the dependency of having to ask your family for any support. So these are based, but then some students are more than happy to, mortgage property, and families are very happy to do. So again, depending on your personal situation, at Galvanize, we will guide you as to which is the best loan provider for you. We have helped students take loans from various countries, from India, from different countries in Africa, Asia. So this is one of our students who got accepted. He's at University of Southern California for VLSI design. It's a very good school. You can see his profile and his feedback on how Galvanize helped him to secure an education loan with a lower interest rate. So we are not just about test scores, GRE prep, TOEFL prep. We're not just about helping you apply to universities. We are there to provide you end-to-end guidance to secure your dreams abroad. So yeah. Now I want to talk about this early bird applicant. It's just remember, you have to try and do the process early, because the sooner you come in, the university will start examining your applications, right? And you have an opportunity to be read first and easier to land financial aid instead of applying at the last minute. So these are some of the reasons that you should start early. And so join us early and we can work with you. We'll give you a lot of time and make sure that your plan is all, lined up and your ducks are all in a row.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and talk about some of our students who have secured admits into our top universities. So, Hridavrata, we already talked about her a little bit earlier. If you see that she has obviously got a PhD admission for electrical and computer engineering at MIT. And if you see that she has an excellent profile, a very good GPA, a high GRE score, and lot of research experience. She has international exposure for her research experience, and also done some certification courses. Hridavrata enrolled with us. We helped her in highlighting all of her achievements very nicely in the SOPs and the related documents, and this helped her get a dream admit. We have Pawan, who has a bachelor's in mechanical engineering from Manipal Institute. Sorry. So again, good GPA, average IELTS score, a lot of experience in his related fields, and he was able to secure an admit at the University of California, Berkeley for a master's in mechanical engineering. So the mechanical engineering program at Berkeley is ranked at number 3. We have Sumit from BITS. Overall GPA, again, average GPA, good GRE score, a lot of experience. He's done a couple of summer research internships at a company, and also at IIT Bombay, has done some research internships there, which has helped him get an admit at a University of Pennsylvania, again, a top ranked university in the US. Mohit is from IIT Dhanbad. He has a bachelor's in petroleum engineering. Now, even though he had a bachelor's in the engineering field, he worked for a couple of years before he decided to go abroad for his master's. And during the process of his work experience, he felt that he enjoyed more of a managerial type of role. But at the same time, he didn't want to give up on the engineering part. So we recommended an engineering management program. Now, just like Pavithra mentioned earlier, your field of interest is very important. Dartmouth is one of the top universities, and has a very low acceptance rate. But for certain programs, they accept international students and they have a higher acceptance rate. So we were able to get him a master's in, we were able to help him get a master's in engineering management at Dartmouth. Naina has a bachelor's in mechanical engineering. If you see that she has an average GPA, a good GRE score, and a good IELTS score, if you see, she has enough research experience, and we were able to get her a master's in biomedical engineering at the Brown University. So here there was a change in major, and we were able to highlight very nicely in her SOP as to why she decided to switch majors. Akshi has a bachelor's in civil engineering, very good GPA, good TOEFL score, and he was able to get a master's in civil engineering, which is at Purdue, which is ranked 4 in the in the nation's engineering schools. Okay. Shweta has a bachelor's in telecommunications. Again, she also, like I mentioned earlier, one of our other students was more interested in the management side of things along with engineering. So she was able to get, even though her GRE score was low and her GPA was also not very high, 8.7 is a good GPA, but Cornell is an extremely competitive university, but their acceptance rate for engineering management programs are slightly higher than their other programs. So this is something that again you want to research as to whether you want to give more importance to the university or more importance to your field of interest. That will help you in deciding which type of universities you want to apply to. Harini has a bachelor's in computer engineering. Excellent profile. If you see, a lot of the research that she has done is very relevant to her field. And she was able to get into the Carnegie Mellon program in electrical and computer engineering with a specialization in cybersecurity, which is a ranked #1 program in the country. Apurva has a bachelor's in computer science and engineering, had a bachelor's, good GRE score, very good GPA, was able to get into Georgia Tech. Now, this is again a different kind of switch. Normally, most of the students from the other engineering fields want to go into computer science fields. She had a computer science background, but was really interested in the industrial engineering field and decided to make that switch over there. So as long as we were able to make sure that she meets all the requirements that are needed for an industrial engineering program, and we were able to help her narrate in her SOP as to why she wants to make this switch, and that's really helped her get the admin. Sushant has a bachelor's in electronics engineering, again, average GPA, but good research experience, good work experience, and he was able to get into Columbia University, which is again one of the top 20 universities in the US. Okay, so that was some of a quick review of our a few of the case studies. We have helped a number of students.
Jayanthy, I would like to actually share with you some of our students who have come from different parts of the world also. So let me, since I noticed that in today's audience, we have students from different countries. And so here I would like to share with you just to motivate you, right? So here I have, I noticed we have students from Africa in today's session. This is Godwin. He's doing his master's in physics at North Carolina Central University. You can see that he's from a very good university in Nigeria, from the Tai University. There he did his education. So he did his undergrad in education and teaching, and he loved physics. So he's actually a physics tutor who's now doing a master's in physics and in North Carolina in the US. And interestingly, he's reached out to us again, and we are currently helping him apply for his PhD in the USA. Right, so that's just to share with you Godwin's experience. This is one of our students from Bangladesh, Meet Faisal. He already had a master's in Bangladesh in mechanical engineering. You can see his profile, his GRE and test scores and GPA. And he's doing his PhD. We helped him apply for his PhD in the US, where he's currently doing his PhD at Auburn University. Right, so you do have a couple of so I'll just see if I have one more student for you. I might have to. There you go. Let me put my slideshow on. This is another one of our students, Federico. He did his undergrad in aeronautical engineering at the University of Sheffield in the UK. Here's his profile, his GPA of 75%, 320 GRE score, IELTS score of 8 or 9, and he got accepted to the very reputed top 20 University of Michigan for a master's in aerospace engineering. So I'm just giving you, I want to give you an overview of our students so you understand what people did to get into these kinds of schools. And we have helped students from all over the world. We have students not only from India, but we have plenty of students from Bangladesh, Nepal, Nigeria, Ghana, Uganda, Eswatini. We have a lot of students, and that makes us feel very happy because we went to an international degree, right? We went from India to the US, and we came back to India, but and when we were there, we met students and professors from different countries, and that makes it very interesting for us to work also with students from different parts of the world. So before we wrap, I'll show you something pretty interesting. So here, if you can see my screen, I have my I have our, this is how our portal looks like. And the reason I'm showing this to you is mainly because you can get an idea in terms of how, everything we do is handled online. And you'll see students with various kinds of GPAs. There's a 6.89 student, somebody with a 9.6, different institutes. For example, if I were to type in, let me say, IITs, you will find a lot of students from different IITs have enrolled with us, all over. And also when we, in terms of, if you look at the specializations or the countries that they want to go, what do they want to do, right? Where do they get accepted? So it is a, we are very happy that we're able to do this at scale. So for example, we have students just for our admissions counseling from more than 272 cities, right? And if you were to understand how it's going to work for you, let me actually show you. For example, our student, Hridipata, who went to MIT. So you have to give it. When you enroll, you give your profile. You tell us what you want to do. Are you switching majors? What was your test score? For example, in her case, it was a 326. Similarly, and where did you study? What did you do for your undergrad? What was your major? What subjects you liked? Did you have backlogs? What were the research projects you did, internships that you did? What are your near-term goals, short-term goals? What are the criteria by which you will choose the university, right? So like the subject is more important to you or the budget more important to you? So you tell us what your preferences are, and you give us the universities, and we will try our best and see how we can guide you to your destination. So for example, for Hridibrata, she had a very strong profile. We felt she was a good candidate for top universities. At the same time, we also gave her, if you see the universities that we have recommended for her, it's a mix of, ambitious universities, practical universities, safe universities. And similarly, if you look at the essays, right, it would be, we would have guided her. We have iterated with her on her SOP, her letter of recommendation, as you can see here, and her statement of purpose. So all of this is done on Google Docs. So if you click on this, you will actually find your our draft for you based on your inputs. Then you can iterate on that and so on. So this is how you will need to go about the process, right? So this is, and then finally we can help you with the entire visa process as well. Visa, we do it mainly for students from India because the rules and regulations vary from country to country. So the reason I just wanted to give you this overview is so that you will be able to get an understanding of how you have to go through this journey and once you start, right? So I really hope that gave you a useful walkthrough. As I explained, we can guide you end to end from your not only for the GRE prep, the TOEFL or IELTS preparation, but also your entire admissions journey. I showed you how we do the university shortlisting or the documentation, visa, and we can even put you in touch with financing and pre-departure services. So end to end, this is something we do at Galvanize. Do click on these Quora links to see what students have talked about us in terms of how our service has been. If you wish to have a detailed one-on-one profile evaluation, this will be free of charge. This is a profile evaluation. You can get your queries answered. And then if you are interested in going ahead and helping, letting us guide you for your journey, then you can, enroll after that point. So this is about that. We're also happy to share our mobile apps are super popular. Our GRE app, for example, if you go to the Play Store and type the word GRE in it, you will find that our GRE app comes within the top 5 on the Android Play Store. Feel free to download these resources, and it can help you in going forward for your journey. Right. So pretty important to make sure you do the right things at the right time. And if you like our advice and you feel that you will have one more person who's see when you take help from a sister or a friend or an aunt, that's great, but they would not have seen thousands of applications, right? So because we have seen, every admission counselor has worked with so many students that they have an ingrained perspective on, it's like going to a doctor who has seen a lot of patients and come to that understanding over their experience of decades versus trying to self-medicate yourself. So if you want to get into a top university and you just want to make sure you increase your chances and you have a good profile, then we are more than happy to guide you on that journey. That's one of the reasons why Jayanthy and I are doing what we're doing. We have experienced the benefits of studying in the US, doing our masters, our PhD, and we really want to move, pay it forward and pass on to the next generation and help guide them, right? So. And I really want to thank you all for being so patient with us. This was such an in-depth session. It was much longer than our usual session because we know that when you want to go to a top university, it's incumbent on us to give you as much inputs as possible. So we took our time, and now it's your time, right? Now you're more than welcome to ask your questions. I noticed that throughout the session we had questions. So I would like to actually take this time to invite you to ask questions, and please do share your video. I will try and see if I can get some help from my colleagues here.
Yes, yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Yes, please unmute whoever is asking a question so they can, and also share their video as well.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, let's go one by one.
So Chitra, I'm unmuting you. You can ask a question.
Hi, Jayanthy and Pavithra. Thank you so much for the session. So I'm very sorry I can't share my video right now. I hope
Okay.
I can move.
That's
Thank you.
okay. Yes. What time is it for you, and where are you from? Just tell us a little bit about yourself and ask your question.
Okay, so I'm Chia Omelo. I'm from Nigeria. I'm currently in Lagos, Nigeria at the moment, and it's something over 3:15 in Lagos.
Okay.
So my question is, and Jayanthy, this question goes to you rather. When you mentioned that the SOP should state something personal or something that motivated you to want to pursue studies in that particular division, I resonated with that. But then I've also attended another session, this time not Galvanize, where they mentioned that when you are going to Ivy League schools or when you are applying to Ivy League schools, your statement of purpose rather should not. So they differentiated between a statement of purpose and a personal statement. And so they said that the statement of purpose should be all business-like. So you have to mention statistics, you have to mention facts, you have to mention projects and research papers, while your statement of purpose can have your personal stories and things like that. So I was wondering if there is anything you would like to say about this, or if it's just a confusion on my part. Thank you.
Jayanthy, are you? I think we can't hear you. Jayanthy, I think you're muted.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, now we can.
Yeah, okay. Hey, hi, Chitra. Thanks for the question. Yes, to a certain extent, you don't want to get very personal in the SOP because that's what the personal statement is for. But you can definitely talk about your motivation as to why you wanted to do that program. And if what motivated you is a personal reason, then there's nothing wrong in mentioning that. Um, the other thing that you will need to check is if the university that you're applying to, whether it requires a personal statement or not. Because if it does require a personal statement, then yes, going into more detail about the personal details in that statement will make more sense, and talking about it less in the SOP will be fine. But then it just depends on the university that you're applying to. But there's definitely nothing wrong in mentioning about your motivation. While yes, the SOP should cover the necessary parts, the project information, the highlights of your profile and all that. But there's nothing wrong in adding a little bit of a personal detail to it as well.
Yeah. So just to add on to that, because it's a professional document, there should not be any sentimental stories in the SOP. So when we say personal, we don't write sob stories about the challenges that we faced and how we overcame them, unless that challenge is directly related to the major you're applying. For example, let us say there's a student who has endured a physical disability. Okay, now they write about that, and if they are applying to a biomedical engineering program where they are designing prosthetics that will help someone who, let's say, whose legs don't function well, and they have faced the same problem, and like Jayanthy said, that motivated them, then you can write about it. Otherwise, all of this, anything personal should ideally sit in your personal statement, which is a completely different essay. Yeah, thank you, Jayanthy. Next question. I think we had a couple of lots of questions actually. I saw people raising hands and anyone else has a question? Probably, yeah, they're not here right now. Anyone else, any other questions? If not, we really would love to hear your feedback on today's session. We do thank you for sticking around, getting all the juice. And now it's time for you to tell us what how valuable or how you felt about today's session. So can we launch that poll, please? Okay. I kind of assumed we would have a poll on the feedback of the session, but since we don't, I would really love to hear from you in the chat. How was the session today? And if there are any topics on which you would like us to do sessions in future, then let us know, because then we would love to talk about it. Okay, yeah, we've got a little poll on the session. Your feedback, please. Okay. Next time we will have choices for bad, very bad also, because we want to make sure we get your honest feedback. I think this is something we just created on the fly, so apologies for that. Okay, I'm so happy to know that almost 90% of you felt that the session was excellent or very good. So that makes Jayanthy and me, feel very satisfied that we were with you today. One of you has asked, will you get a recording of the session? Yes, you will get a recording. Another question, Suresh says, will bringing my family affect my conversion? I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. You mean bringing your family with you to the country, or talking about your family in your essay? So your question is not very clear. One of you has asked, can I get the address to your website? It's galvanizeme.com, as you can see in that email address here. galvanizeme.com. The idea is we want to galvanize you into achieving your goals, right? So that is our goal for you. And with this, I would like to wrap up the session. Thank you all so much. And I wish you all the very best of success. We really look forward to guiding you and helping you on your journey. And we are very excited to hear from you. So thank you so much. Thank you, Jayanthy, for being a fantastic co-panelist.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.